Good evening, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, part of the Cover One Sports Network. I am your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on the old Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2 underscores ANT. Give me a follow on the old Twitter, or if follows aren't your thing, I've said this intro joke before. Give me a time machine to go back in time and somehow change the fates and the fortunes of this past Monday night against New England Patriots. I think we're all still reeling as Bills fans, and as objective as I am with everything for football and the Buffalo Bills and everything like that in general, at the end of the day, I'm still a fan. I love the Buffalo Bills. And when they lose, it ruins my week. It ruins my day. I was there live Monday night. The energy was great. Even the weather was cool at first. You get there and it's cold and it's snowy and it looks awesome. And it looks like those old school NFL film videos with the music that's going behind them. And it's awesome. And then you're there and your hands are numb and your feet are really cold. And then the Bills lose. It's rough. So I'll take a follow on Twitter, or I will take a time machine to go back and change the past for that Bills-Patriots game. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage and to Cover One as a whole. I say it every week. I know it's corny to plug that and plug the likes and all that kind of stuff, but that stuff goes a long way in terms of helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and viewers and listeners and all that kind of stuff. So that goes a long way. So please drop a like while you're in here or when you're watching or any of that kind of stuff. This episode of Disguise Coverage, as all episodes of Disguise Coverage have been this season, is sponsored by One Pie Pizza. You see the Twitter handle there at One Pie Pizza, WNY. Got the online menu linked in the episode description, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on any one of the podcasting apps and platforms. So go out, get yourself some One Pie Pizza, delicious sweet sauce pizza, homemade blue cheese, good people. They've got a toy drive going for Christmas time and the holidays. They had a knockout cancer promotion that they ran through Cancer Month in October. They do a lot of great stuff in terms of as who they are as people, but also they make great food and great pizza, and it's delicious. Go check them out. I love having their partnership, as does the entire Cover One team. And in tonight's episode, so we're going to start out talking about some of the aspects of the Bills-Patriots game. I don't want to spend a crazy amount of time on it. I very much believe in, moving forward and you can't dwell too much in the past and taking that next step. But it's hard with how that game turned out against New England. It's not a make or break game. It wasn't, the season's over, or even if we won, it's not like, oh man, this is we've turned the corner, everything's great. But it was definitely demoralizing. It's hard to not feel that as someone who watched that game. It's hard to not watch that and just feel something. And as Lone Wolf mentions already, Lone Wolf, I appreciate you as always being here. He says it might be time for fans to accept the fact that this team is not what or who we were hoping they would be. Expectations flushed. Let's hope the playoffs are still in the cards. And I don't feel that the Bills can't be the team that we had envisioned them to be. I don't think, that they can't be the prince that was promised type of thing. But I echo your sentiments here and understand them. Like it's been rough, especially with those expectations. Lone Wolf, I think you nailed it right on the head. The expectations for this Buffalo Bills team coming in were I don't want to say astronomical, but they were very high. I mean, not even just from Bills Mafia and the Bills fans, but objectively from those who cover the NFL on different networks objectively as their job. The Bills were easy top 3 in a heavy majority of power rankings. And usually in the top 2, it was the Bills in Kansas City. And those expectations were high. And then even with the loss to Pittsburgh, that kind of dampened spirits a little bit. The Bills came out. They answered. They beat Kansas City. Spirits are high. Those expectations were very high for this Buffalo Bills team. And it's tough to see where they are now, sitting there at 7-5, having the losses to Pittsburgh and Jacksonville and Indianapolis and New England and these in Tennessee, but it's the way they've lost and how they were dominated against the Colts and how they looked, in theory against New England and all these matchups. So it's easy to understand how fans are feeling and how you can feel distraught. And again, it's all tied to those expectations. Everybody had high expectations for this Bills team before the season started. And then those continued in season, especially after the Kansas City win. And then things have kind of come down a little bit. And it's understandable to feel that way. And I'm really glad, Lone Wolf, that you made that comment. Also, Charles, I see your comment there. I'm going to pull that up in a second. I think it's understandable to be emotional when it comes to the Bills or be reactionary when it comes to any team in general. We're human. We feel things. If you cut us, do we all not bleed? All that kind of stuff. But I think perspective is always important with everything. And that leads into the first thing I want to talk about in tonight's episode. Again, I don't want to rehash the Pats game too much, but as I mentioned on Twitter and in the promo stuff for this episode, if you are here, feel free to vent your frustrations, air your grievances, your feats of strength for a happy Festivus, any type of thing like that. Questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, whether it's up to the season thus far, whether it's about the Buccaneers game this week, whether it's about something individual about any team or the Bills in general, throw it in the chat. I try to get to anything and everything that I can. If you throw it up with a super chat, it catches my eye better and it guarantees you a shot to, or not guarantees you a shot, it guarantees you that you will get that question pulled up and answered almost immediately. But feel free to throw anything and everything up in there. I try to get to everything that I can. But, the Bills defense versus the Patriots, everybody's leaning on that stat of only 3 Mac Jones passes versus 46 runs and everything. Ooh, I see the comment there from Handsome Man. I think that's very interesting. I'm going to pull that one up as well. So stay patient, everyone. I appreciate you guys. I think it's easy to look at the Bills' defensive performance in a vacuum against New England and see they only threw the ball 3 times. And all they did was run it. And they ran the same plays over and over again. And they ran the same styles over and over again. And we couldn't stop it and couldn't stop it. And I get why you feel that way. And it is frustrating, for a team to only pass 3 times and have a record win like that is historical to the point where it's like, they threw up the graphic. I saw it on ESPN briefly. Again, I was at the game, but I know the stat was flashed, like the amount of teams that have won with fewest passing attempts. And the Bills were in there a couple times, but it was like 2, 5, 3. And the Pats come out and they win a very important game in the AFC and in the AFC East. And they do it by only passing 3 times. And so you look at that and you think, well, this team was one-dimensional. I can't believe we let them beat us. But I wanted to throw up some drive stats from this past Bills-Patriots game. I tweeted it out earlier. Again, just perspective for some things. So this is all of the New England Patriots drives versus the Bills on Monday Night Football, excluding the final drive of the game that was basically like a kneel down, give up. We're out of here. Bills don't have timeouts. We're running out the clock here. So 3 plays, -1 yard, punt. 3 plays, 5 yards, punt. 3 plays, 69 yards, nice, touchdown. 9 plays, 52 yards, field goal. 3 plays, 4 yards, punt. 4 plays, 25 yards, punt, end of half. 5 plays, 4 yards, punt. 14 plays, 59 yards, field goal. 3 plays, 6 yards, punt. That 3-play, 6-yard punt, that last one there before the Patriots' last possession was the one that came after the missed field goal where the Bills had to get the ball back and they made the Pats go 3 and out again. So for those of you counting at home, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3 and outs forced by the Buffalo Bills defense. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of the Patriots' drives totaled 6 yards or less. Perspective for things, right? The Bills defense could have potentially made a play to win this game. They could have filled gaps better. They could have had better gap integrity and better gap exchanges when it came to defending the run. But I don't think holistically the defense had a horrible performance. Was it what we wanted it to be? No. Did they still give up a bunch of rushing yards? Did they allow the Patriots to succeed running the ball in the grand scheme of things? Yes. This is not to give the Bills defense a pass on anything like that. This is not to say they played great and it's the offense's fault or it's so-and-so's fault. That's not for any of that, but just perspective. It's easy to come away from that game and be like, we got embarrassed, as some local writers want to stoke the fire with words like that. But I don't think that was the case for this game. The Bills got beat defensively on several big runs, but for the most part, I thought they maintained a decent amount of integrity. And I also want to mention as well, in the Cover One film room last night that myself and Eric Turner did, which you guys should go check out on Cover One. It's fantastic as always. We had Mike Girardi from the NFL Network, and he knows a ton about the Pats and covers the Pats. He had an awesome comment from Dante Scarnecchia, the longtime New England Patriots offensive line coach, one of the best guys to ever do it. And he talked about when, Scarnecchia believed, and one of his philosophies with your offensive line, it was a great way to put it, they're 5 guys, but they have to play with one set of eyes, meaning they have to move in unison. They have to see the same thing. They have to read the same thing. If one guy isn't seeing what the other 4 are, it's easy to blow your assignment and lose, right? So 5 guys, one set of eyes. It's the same thing on the defensive side of the ball, holistically, but especially when you are playing against the run and defending against the run. You have to fill gaps. You have to fill lanes. You have to maintain integrity with your assignment. And then you have things like gap exchanges, right? So basically, in a long story short, with the gap exchange, if I've got the A gap and you've got the B gap, and all of a sudden you go into the A gap, I have to cover that B gap because we can't have 2 guys in the same gap, because then you have a hole that's open, which is what happened on the long Damian Harris touchdown run, right? Micah Hyde over pursues a little bit. The box defenders all get pushed out. Pats get a hat on a hat. Hyde over pursues. Harris has a beautiful wide open cutback lane, right? You don't have that gap integrity. That's what they didn't have. They didn't execute properly on that, right? That's a hard thing to do. I feel like people think it's easy to stop the run, where it's just like, well, I mean, you just crowd the line of scrimmage. You just get bodies there, and you fill the hole and you make the tackle. It's not as easy as it seems. If an offensive line has to operate with 5 guys, one set of eyes, it's the same thing for the defense. You need all 11 defenders operating with one set of eyes. So think of this, in a split second, in an instant, they have to see the same thing. They have to read it the same way. They have to understand it the same way. Then they have to attack and execute physically in order to properly hold their responsibility and execute their assignment. They have to do that in about 1 to 1.5 seconds and then make the play. That's a very hard thing to do for an individual, let alone a collective group of individuals, let alone when you're playing against a team that, 1, has talent, which the Patriots offense does, 2, has a good scheme, 3, are more physically dominant than you are, right? And then they're running these gap runs on top of it. We saw that G lead over and over again that Brian Baldinger showed, where you had the down blocks from the tackle and the tight end, and then you have a pulling guard, and then you have fullback Jakob Johnson kicking out, and those lanes that just kept going there off tackle and off guard and through the hole and leading it out. Those power runs, those gap runs, right, are designed to out-gap the defense. You are creating different gaps. You are taking a gap from the right side of the offensive line and moving it to the left, or vice versa. When that happens, the defense has to read and react, and they have to adjust. That's a hard thing to do 46 times. I think on the majority of it, I think the Bills defense did their job. It's unfortunate the result that we got, and this performance should not be put holistically on the offense or on the defense. That's part of the perspective I want everybody to have with this. And not to be corny or cliche with the you win as a team, you lose as a team type thing. Yes, the Bills defense could have made more plays. Yes, they could have been more gap sound and had better integrity. Yes, they could have not over pursued and taken proper angles at times. Yes, they could have missed less tackles, all these things. But they didn't play as bad as you think they did, or that you might think they did, or as the raw numbers may show. And it's hard to stop runs like that over and over and over. In the running game in general, it's hard to be that sound and operate with that level of integrity play after play after play after play. It's hard. I see some comments coming through, and I want to get to them. So, I want to go to the first one that Charles mentioned. Charles, your question here, do you think we feel the loss of Trey White versus Tampa Bay and their heavy passing attack? I'm going to get to that when we get to Tampa Bay, but yes, I think we feel it more than we do, or than we did with potentially against New England. Tampa Bay is a very good team overall, and they're balanced. They can pass and they can run. I'm worried about the threat of the running game that leads to the play action passing game. And then with the threat of the passing game as a whole, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are both tremendous. And Godwin is very technically sound, very fast, very athletic. Mike Evans, pretty good from a technical standpoint, but big body, fast, vertical, long arms. Those are the kind of guys that have given the Bills defensive backs, even Tre'Davious White, problems previously, guys that are physically imposing, whether it's speed or size or length or any of that. So I do think we feel the loss of Trey White. Doesn't mean we can't win, but I think we do feel that. Comment here from Lone Wolf saying, on the bright side, we've only lost one game by more than one score. So that's something, right? Yeah, moral victories, silver linings, all that kind of stuff. And comment from Bill here saying the 4 passes killed us. McDermott, horrible clock management, stupid challenge. I get what he was going for with the challenge, but it was an unfortunate challenge to say the least. I don't think Mac Jones got that first down. I will say that. Watching it live and watching the replays in the stadium, I do not think he got that first down whatsoever. That being said, we all know the rule. You have to have definitive proof, definitive evidence to overturn a call on the field. And that's what the referees said. The referees didn't say call was confirmed. They said call stands, meaning we don't have evidence one way or the other to show it was a first down or show it wasn't. So we're going with the call that was on the field. And you also got to put some of that into the team as a whole, right? Again, perspective is in this thing as I take a drink of water. He's got to have, McDermott, he's got to have some support up in the booth for his guys to tell him like, hey, we can't challenge it. There's no good view. I don't know if it was reactionary by him or somebody in the booth didn't do their job and tell him like, no, coach, don't challenge it. Or maybe they did and he overruled them. A lot of moving parts even with that. But yeah, it wasn't a great challenge for that at all. And, it was unfortunate. Comment here from William. The world knew the Pats were going to run, and they did anyway to great avail. We were on the 6-yard line, and the world knew we should have run QB power, and we give the ball to a running back who was in gym shorts last game. I feel you on that drive that started at the 6, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well, the Bills' red zone and how they've been operating and what they've been doing and the inefficiencies that we've seen in the red zone this year and some interesting numbers statistically and analytically and some metrics. I don't know. I don't want to say the world knew we should run QB power. Also, just to play devil's advocate, I can't tell you how many people last year were upset and yelling at clouds about how the Bills are running Josh Allen too much and how QB powers and QB sweeps are terrible, and we can't do that with a potential franchise quarterback. So there's always two sides to it. I just think when you get in the red zone, again, we're going to talk about this in this episode, you just got to run your horses. You got to run your best guys at some point. And I think we're getting too cute. I think we've gotten too complicated with our scheme in the red zone, and that can't continue. But, fair point. I'm going to keep making my way through the comments, but see, when someone does a super chat, I get a little icon, and I'm going to pull this up from Ned. Ned says, if you align expectations with reality, you will never be disappointed. Terrell Owens. Oh, very interesting. That's a cool quote from him. That's a good question. What should expectations be given our next opponent? That's a tremendous question, Ned. What should our expectations? First of all, thank you very much for 1, tuning in, 2, for your super chat, 3, for a really good thought-provoking question. The expectations for this next game for Tampa, I was going to get into it later, but we'll get into it now because you asked the question. I don't think the Bills should be counted out. I know a lot of people are kind of doom and gloom and doomsday scenario right now where the Bills are done and, we're barely going to make the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. I think there's a very real possibility that the Bills lose to Tampa Bay on Sunday. Tampa Bay is tremendous by any metric, raw metrics, DVOA, analytics, any kind of stuff. They have a very strong team, and that's with all the injuries they've suffered, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and the offensive line. They've had a lot of injuries that they've overcome. They've had a lot of guys missing, and they continue on the path that they're on. Tampa Bay's good. I don't think it's crazy that the Bills win this game. I do. If we're sitting here next week and coming off of a Bills victory against Tampa, I would not be shocked. I think the expectations for this Bills team is just to see better execution as a whole. That's what I'm watching for. I would expect the Bills not to get blown out. If they lose, I think it's going to be close. I don't think you see a game that's like, I know a lot of people are like, well, if we lost to New England, we're going to get killed by Tampa. I don't think that. But it's not a great matchup given what Tampa Bay can do offensively, given what they can do defensively, and where the Bills currently stand. That said, I think the expectations should be a close game, a tough, hard-fought game. I think, honestly, you could see another game, probably more high-scoring, but close to what the New England game is. I'd expect a one-score game, like a 34-30 or a 31-24, maybe 38-35, something like that. I think it's going to be another nail-biter where we're either sitting at the end being like, that was a great win, or we're sitting there again talking about if we only had these 2 or 3 plays, we could have possibly won it. Great question. And again, thank you for your donation. I'd really appreciate it. I want to get back to some of the other questions there. Question from Charles again. Love your guys' work. Appreciate you. Saw you showed the red zone percentage this year compared to last year, but I thought it lacked context. Okay. Bills, have crushed lesser teams, but seem to consistently come up short versus good teams. That's fair. Quality of opponent definitely plays a role in terms of the statistics. It is accounted for in DVOA and along with situations, which is interesting, which again, the Bills right now are 6th offensively in terms of total red zone DVOA, which I find absolutely shocking given what we see with our eyes. But yeah, from, we're going to talk about it in a bit, but from a raw metric standpoint, things are pretty similar last year to this year in terms of touchdown percentage, and the DVOA, they're better this year in the red zone offensive than they were last year. But again, there's a lot of pieces that go into it. And yeah, there is some context with quality of opponent, but we used it overall to more speak to how the Bills are operating this year versus last year and what's going on. I just want to finish up some comments here with the Bills D against the pass. Lone Wolf said Edmonds over pursued on that 64-yard run, left his gap for the running back cutback lane. Even so, the D holds them to 14 points. We didn't lose because of the D. What? I do think Edmonds over pursued a bit. I think that responsibility, though, was either Tyrell Dodson or Micah Hyde's. And I still think, again, here's where the gap exchange comes in, right? If you're Micah Hyde, you see that Tremaine Edmonds has gone outside. You have to stop and get back into that alley. You have to fill that gap. You have to swap. Tremaine Edmonds has taken a different gap. You have to replace where he should have been, quote unquote, if that's what his responsibility was on that play. You have to fill back in. So again, it looks to the naked eye like this guy over pursued, but that's where the collective, that's where the 11 guys, one set of eyes, that's where that comes into play. You got to help your boy out, And again, maybe Edmonds executed his role. I don't know the defensive call. But yeah, he got popped outside. Hyde's got to come back in and fill that from depth. He also over pursued and we got gashed inside. Taylor, I appreciate you, man. You are fantastic as always. Thank you for joining us live here. Taylor says, I can't believe we have to nitpick the best D we've had in some years because we can only score 10 points. That's fair. Comment here from Handsome Man. My initial reaction was to blame the D, but having watched the game again, I realized that we were down to score twice, failed both, not really good calls. No, we were 1 of 4 in the red zone. And that definitely plays a role. Again, if the defense holds them to 9 points, Bills win. If the Bills score 2 touchdowns and a field goal, the Bills win. There's all these things where you can play this game of whose fault it was and who to blame and this and that, but there's so many ways the ball could have bounced, and it's unfortunate that we're in that position, but just got to stay true to it. Comment here. I like this one. I think some are disappointed how easily the D-line gets pushed out of the way. I wanted to bring that up because I want to say this quick on the Bills defensive line. The Bills defensive line is built to rush the passer and compress the pocket. They are built to stop Patrick Mahomes' style of offenses. The defense as a whole is built to stop spread offenses. They are built for the modern NFL. They are built to go sideline to sideline. They are built to disguise coverage. Wink, wink. They are built to play nickel defense and defend against 3 wide receiver sets. And they're going to give you a light box. And that's what they're going to do, and play zone coverage on the back end with 2 high or maybe single high safety. That's what they are built to do. They are not built to handle a team, unfortunately, like the Tennessee Titans or the New England Patriots or the Indianapolis Colts or potentially the Cleveland Browns, who want to run this old, I don't want to say old school traditional, but power gap run style of offense at you, or even just a running style, running dominant centric offense in general. The Bills defense is not built to 2 gap and occupy holes. They are built to penetrate, get into the backfield and make plays. And that can work against you at times in the run game. So there's a lot to unpack there. Honestly, we could talk about that for like 30, 40 minutes in this episode alone, but I think that's fair. Some are disappointed with how the D-line got pushed out of the way, and that's fair. You still have to execute. You still have to mitigate, your weakness, but that's how this Bills team has been built, and that's something that we're going to have to deal with over and over and over. And what else do we got here? Comment there from Charles on they should have went bare front and put an extra defensive lineman on the field. That's on coaching. Fair. I mean, there's a lot when it comes down to what player personnel they used and what subs they could have made and adjustments. And there's a lot. Oh, there's the seat. And that's how it all ties together. Everybody, you can play devil's advocate. Lone Wolf says if the offense could have scored in the red zone, that would have forced Mac Jones to pass. There you go. That's also something that was mentioned on the film room last night in that terrific episode, again, with tremendous guest, Mike Giardi from the NFL Network. The Patriots getting out in front early allowed them to stick to that game script of just run the ball and not throw with Mac Jones. Getting out in front early allowed them to stick to it, and it worked. So sometimes you're a victim of circumstance as well. Taking a drink of water. Apologies. What else? Kind of want to go through and just get to the next bit on this here. Sorry, you see my notes go there. But yeah, the perspective of everything, again, just to tie it all home with the defensive performance against the Patriots, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I don't think you can get on any one individual person or any one side of the ball for any loss ever. That's a tough thing to do anytime ever. But this loss, again, just dive into the context of it. And I say that as a person who I have the luxury of being able to watch the all 22. And I have the luxury of having people that I can go to and bounce ideas off of and question thoughts and comments, concerns that I have in order to fully form an idea and a thought. And you just always got to have perspective with things. Don't get too high, don't get too low. And I really wanted to, that's why I wanted to talk about the defense. Again, I don't think they had an amazing game. I don't think the defense came out and shut down the Pats. If you have a team that is just literally going to only do one thing, run or pass, and it's happening over and over again, it'd be nice if you could stop it. That being said, you also have to have it in the back of your mind where, like, are they going to go play action this time now? They have to pass it eventually. Are they going to pass it here? So there's all this give and take. There's all this opportunity for, wishes and wants and all that kind of stuff. But it's all harder than it seems. Defending gap runs and defending the run in general is a lot harder than it seems. It's not as easy as just like, well, crowd the line of scrimmage and you'll get stops. It doesn't work that way. It's a complicated thing. But alas, there we are with that. The next topic I want to get to here, it was mentioned briefly earlier in some comments. The Buffalo Bills in the red zone. Ooh. Oh, I see a Ned saying, thank you, Anthony. No, thank you, Ned. I appreciate your donation and your awesome comment earlier. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's an interesting thing with the red zone this year. So we mentioned it a bit on the film room last night, and Charles mentioned it in his comment earlier. I want to pull out just some red zone numbers, right? So, because this has been such a hot topic, right? Like the store. So the Bills in this year, 2021, red zone touchdown percentage. So the percentage of times they score touchdowns when they get into the red zone. They are at 58.82%. So roughly 59%, right? 59% red zone touchdown percentage currently, right now, 2021. That includes the last 3 games where they were at 50%. That includes Monday night where they were 1 of 4 for 25%. Right now, 2021, 59% red zone touchdown percentage. Last year, 2020, when the Bills were setting the world on fire and everybody thought their offense was fantastic and Josh Allen garnered MVP votes and he was the highest scoring fantasy football quarterback, all these terrific things for the Bills offense last year. A red zone touchdown percentage of 61.04%. So they are a little more than 2 percentage points off of their touchdown percentage pace from last year, right? Also last year, just for reference, first place in red zone touchdown percentage was the Packers at 76.8, so roughly 77. They had a killer year. This year, the 49ers are first at 75.76, so roughly 76%. What also is interesting, like I mentioned earlier, again, the Bills right now are 6th in red zone DVOA. Last year, they were 9th in red zone DVOA as an offense. Again, DVOA takes into account situation, opponent, and all the and situational factors like that in order to give you a better analysis of something than just a raw statistic or a raw metric. So it's still crazy to me that the Bills are 6th right now, because to the naked eye, it seems so much worse. Even the percentage points, to know that they're only 2 percentage points off of the pace from last year. Granted, last year had more games in it, but it's wild because you look at the games and you see what's going on, and you would think they wouldn't be even close to what they were doing last year. And an awesome comment here from Ben, who said, Eric Turner from Cover One did a great red zone problems breakdown earlier in the year. I wonder if what he saw then is still happening. Just seems to be no creativity down there. I love that question, and it ties right into the next thing I want to talk about. Also, Devin, I see your question, and we're going to get to that. So what's very indicative of what the Bills have been doing in the red zone this year is how many RPOs they're using. So RPOs, run pass options, basically a play call that allows you to have both a run and a pass called at the same time. And based on what the defense is doing, either pre or post snap, because there's multiple kinds of RPOs. You can have a pre-snap RPO where based on alignment, you're going to do A, or a post-snap one where based on the post-snap movement of player A, you're going to do A or B, all that kind of stuff. RPOs, 2021, in the red zone, the Bills have run 31 RPOs in the red zone. That is the fourth most from a usage percentage in the NFL. That is a 22% usage rate of RPOs in the red zone. In 2020, in the red zone, all of 2020, all of it, they only ran 14 snaps. They only ran 14 RPOs in the red zone in all of 2020. This year, they've already run 31. Their 14 snaps last year was a usage rate of 8%. Again, versus this year, a usage rate of 22%. Also, this year, play action, usage rate of 20% in the red zone. Last year, play action in the red zone, 29%. So a higher play action rate last year. So it's flipped. Less play action, more RPO this year. Personnel usage. This is one as well. It's kind of close, but still, this drives home to the point that I want to make here. Last year in the red zone, the Bills were in 11 personnel, so one running back, one tight end, for 91 snaps. I'm sorry, that's this year. They have been in 11 personnel for 91 snaps, which is a usage rate of 65%. Last year, they had a usage rate of 11 personnel of 71% in the red zone. And 10 personnel this year, so 4 wides, 7% this year, 11% last year. So put all these things together, right? I think the Bills are using too much RPO in the red zone, and the Bills are trying to get too cute, for a lack of a better term. Eric, when we did the film room last night, we were breaking down several of the Bills plays in the red zone against New England, and he had a great way of phrasing it of, you got to run your horses. You got to let your horses run. The Bills have gotten into a position where they need to simplify things. I don't think, Ben here, you said just seems to be no creativity down there. I don't want to say the opposite is true, but I think they've gotten too complicated with what they're doing. I think they need to come out and just either run it or pass it, simplify things. Also, a point with RPOs, right? The linemen don't know necessarily if it's going to be a run or a pass, so they kind of get caught in this no man's land Bermuda Triangle scenario of trying to do both things, right? And if it's a pass and you don't come out in the right leverage and the right pass protection, you get taken advantage of, or vice versa. If you come out and you're too high and it ends up being a run, you don't get a hat on a hat. You don't get to open a hole. Makes life harder for your running backs. There's all these things. So I think step one to fixing things in the red zone, you got to go less RPO. 2, dance with the girl that brought you. Run your horses. Use your horses the way they're meant to be used. As Eric Turner mentioned last night in the film room, go back to your heavy wide receiver sets. Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, Gabriel Davis, use them. No more 2 tight end sets, 2 running back sets. In the play last night where Monday night, where Josh Allen was sacked, the one where Judon threw Tommy Sweeney into him and got the sack, right? Only 3 routes were run on that play. Zach Moss eventually leaks out into the middle of the field, but you have the jerk route by Kumaro on the outside, and then you've got Diggs and Dawson Knox on the left side of the formation running their overs, right? The Patriots dropped 6 guys into coverage on that play. Technically 7, because Donta Hightower comes, he rushes off the edge, but he doesn't get there, and then he drops back into coverage a little bit. But even if you don't count him, you've got 3 guys running routes versus 6. Odds, numbers, advantage, defense. 6 versus 3. let alone in the red zone where the field is condensed because you can't run by anybody because you have the back of the end zone guarding you in. You also have the sidelines boxing you in. So you've got 6 versus 3 in a condensed area. It's hard to get open. And for the defense, it's easy to squeeze windows. It's easy to narrow things and make life difficult for a quarterback. And that also ties in to another piece in the red zone. Josh Allen has the second most dropbacks in which he's seen zone coverage in the red zone. Patrick Mahomes is first and Josh Allen second. Tied for third are Tom Brady and Lamar Jackson, which again makes sense. Teams do not want to give you any type of leverage, any type of opening. They have with Lamar, you have the threat of the run. With Josh Allen, you have the threat of the run. Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes can carve you up. So you throw more guys into coverage. You again, try to squeeze the windows, narrow the field, work with that condensed field to your advantage, and try to make life difficult for the offense. That's worked for defenses this year to a decent degree against the Bills. And to tie that all together, I know what some of the numbers say, and it's interesting. I don't think there's any doubting that, but I think a lot of what's gone on with the Bills offense this year in the red zone has come down to defenses playing zone coverage against them and the RPOs and trick plays that the Bills used last year. You know, the little plays where Josh Allen snaps it and someone's going in orbit motion and he turns and he goes to fake it to Isaiah McKenzie and then he goes for a draw up the middle. Those plays aren't working this year. One, because defenses are playing zone and those type of plays are designed to pull guys out of the box. Guys don't get really pulled like that if they're in zone coverage because they're staying with their responsibility. Two, that's scouted now. You got a year of tape worth of that. So teams know it's coming or they anticipate it. And then when you have the RPO action, as I said multiple times throughout this year, defenses can dictate what the offense is going to do. Again, if you're Josh Allen is, okay, you give that run action, right? And if the linebacker crashes in, you keep it and you pass, or you pull it out of the gut and you pass it, right? But if he stays in his zone, you hand it off to the running back because that's what the play is designed to do. Okay, that guy's not coming. We have a numbers advantage. Let me hand the ball off and take advantage of these free yards, quote unquote. So a defense can sit there and just say, dude, don't bite on that run action. Stay in your zone. And that's going to make Josh Allen have to hand the ball off. And again, I mention all these things with RPOs. The linemen get caught in this position. Am I pass blocking? Am I run blocking? Then the added point of the Bills' offensive line is not tremendous. They have all these things to worry about, right? In terms of talent and scheme and all those things. So there's a lot working against the Bills, I think, when it comes to using the RPOs. And they're doing them a lot this year. Just in terms of their usage rate overall, again, I mentioned what it is in the red zone where the numbers are drastically different versus last year. But even just holistically, what the Bills are doing from an RPO standpoint this year, they have a usage rate this year of 19% for their RPO. So that's not just red zone, that's holistically with the offense. Last year it was 9%. So they've gone up 10% in overall usage rate, and they've gone up 14% in usage rate in the red zone. I don't think that's a coincidence at this point. I understand the nature of it. You can use an RPO to take advantage of the defense. You can take advantage of what they're trying to do pre or post snap, catch them where they're not, type of thing, but it's not working. And we need to get the ball back into Josh Allen's hands directly, whether it's some more design runs for Josh Allen or just straight drop back passes. Take advantage of the guys you have out there. Take advantage of Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis and Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders and Dawson Knox, and really trying to take what you do best and amplify it. I think right now the Bills have gotten to a point where they've tried to get a little too cute and it's backfiring a little bit. And when you talk about the creativity in the red zone and all these things, depending on how you view the word creativity, I think it's the opposite of that. I think they need to simplify things, and we're either calling a pass or we're calling a run. Maybe we can have a check or an alert at the line. You know, we're going to call 2 plays in the huddle, and if you see this, check it to a run. If you see this, check it to a pass. One of those 2 things. I'm fine with still doing that. I trust Josh to do that. But we've allowed defenses to dictate to the Bills offense for far too much of this season, and that has to stop. And I think that is step 1 in terms of fixing thing in the red zone. The easiest fix would be have a better offensive line, but that can't happen. So you got to dance with the girl that brought you. What are you deficient at? What are your strengths? Okay, let's play to the strengths. Let's mitigate the deficiencies. How do we do that? I think a lot of it starts with less RPOs in the red zone and more direct plays and reads for Josh Allen. I'm going to take a drink again. So again, that was some Bills red zone talk and everything that's going down. Now, I see some of the comments coming here. Oh, I'm going to pull this one up. Awesome from Ned. Ned saying, so sincerely appreciate your objective analysis of what is going on with the team. Some of the emotional responses following this game are ridiculous. I appreciate that, Ned. I don't really pull up compliments for myself because I think it's weird and corny, but I pride myself on my objectivity despite the fact that I love the Bills. So that means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Where? There was a comment I wanted to pull up. There it is. I want to pull up this last one about the defensive line from Dominico Maxwell. That's a cool name. All of the top early draft picks spent on the D line and they get pushed around by physical offensive lines. I want to say two things. One, even if you didn't love Gregory Rousseau and Carlos Basham when they were picked, don't make a definitive judgment on them now. They're still both rookies. Gregory Rousseau has a high ceiling. He could be an all-pro. He could be amazing. Carlos Basham has a lower ceiling, but you still don't know what they could be. They're rookies. Don't judge them too harsh now. Even AJ Epinesa, he's in his second year. He could still grow and become better. Second, to tie it into the other point, I think those draft picks, again, it's all about fit and personnel. Those early guys, Rousseau, Basham, AJ Epinesa, especially after they had him undergo that weight change and transform his body, they are built to play in a modern passing attack NFL. They're built to go sideline to sideline. They're built for speed. They are not built to go toe-to-toe from a physical standpoint with big, physical, gap-running offensive lines. They are not built for that. Doesn't mean you can't win. Doesn't mean you can't beat those big, physically dominant offensive lines, but it's hard. They're not built for that. Just want to mention that. But I like the comment there. Oh, and then a poll from Devin. Oh, Devin, I have to go back to your comment. That's what I wanted to do because you asked me a question. Yeah, Devin saying, interesting. I thought they weren't being creative enough. Again, it depends on how you define creative in the red zone. If by creative, you mean like I would like more jet motion. I would like more speed guys and gadget potential plays and maybe things like that for creative. But I lump creative more in, if you're not just doing like a straight pass or a straight run, I kind of throw those in terms of like not being creative. Not that that's bad, but that's just how I define it. I think it's all depends on how you define the term creative, but to each his own there. Going back, because Devin, you added me in something and I wanted to get to it. There you go, because it was related to the red zone. Devin says, don't you think that small red zone percentage difference could also be because last year they had more explosive plays that scored from outside the red zone? No, because that red zone percentage only accounts for touchdowns that are coming in the red zone. So it's only counting your series and your snaps once you get into the red zone. But I guess I don't know how many. That's an interesting stat. If somebody ever wants to look that up, that'd be awesome if I had a producer and I could just go in my ear and be like, hey, Timmy, like I need you to look this up. To know what kind of red zone, touchdowns they scored last year in terms of like length, in terms of yards for the red zone touchdowns. I don't know how many they scored from like 15 plus or 10 plus versus how many came from inside the 5 or inside the 10 or things like that. I will say the explosive plays this year have been harder to come by for the Buffalo Bills. And that has a lot to do with teams playing too high coverages against them and playing more zone coverage. They refuse to get beat over the top by Josh Allen and this offense. And they are making the Bills work for every single yard, whether it's in between the 20s or in the red zone. So that's a fair comment. Where are we? Going through some more comments, and yeah, I think that's where we're all caught up to now. So now let's pivot. Let's go towards this week. Buffalo Bills versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Taking a drink of water again. I feel like I've said that like a million times tonight, so bear with me for a quick second. Oh, this is a really good comment. Before I get to that, comment from Brent. With our D-line being more mobile instead of walls, we require a lot of our linebackers. Yes. The Bills ask a lot of Matt Milano, Tremaine Edmonds, and also by extension, Taron Johnson. When you don't have defensive linemen that are eating up blockers, that means you are going to get more guys that are going to come into your kitchen and they're going to get into your body. You have to fend off more blocks or avoid those blocks. There is a reason. I've said this so many times on this show and throughout my tenure with Cover One this last year. There is a reason why after Tony Siragusa and Sam Adams were gone from the Baltimore Ravens defense, there is a reason that the Ravens went out and took Haloti Ngata in the first round. One, great prospect, good dude. Two, a wall of a man, a mountain of a man that you put on your defensive line who eats up blockers. And what does that do? That keeps Ray Lewis clean and it allows Ray Lewis to go sideline to sideline, penetrate gaps, and work free. That is a huge piece. Now, that doesn't mean your defense can't work. That just means you have to be very gap sound. And when you penetrate, it has to be with a purpose and you can't get blown out of your gap, which is easier said than done. But yes, with our mobile D line, instead of two gapping brick wall defensive linemen, you do ask more of your linebackers. That's a very good comment. Well done there, Brent. I'm going to pull this one up. Hold on. There you go. Oh, actually, let me go back to accidentally click this one. Yeah, Jamin Davis from Georgia. That's the mountain of a man defensive tackle. I feel you on that, Charles. That would be sweet. Calling it out for Lone Wolf. My wife will like this because she decorated the tree. Lone Wolf says, Anthony, your tree's looking good. I appreciate that. And pull the comment down. Got some red garland up top, some green down below, a little bit of mixture of the red and green in the middle there. Then got the white lights. I've also got some colored lights that you can't really see too much. I know that's why you guys are here. You guys are here for the tree, so I want to break it down. Got some colored lights that are just a little drowned out by the white because the white is so bright. And then also wanted to point out here, still got the colored leaves for fall. Those will be changing to little candy canes for the next episode. So yeah, we're full holiday themed out over here. And I appreciate you noticing the work of the tree. I love the tree. And my wife will appreciate that because she designed it. So appreciate that. Go to this comment. Misconception. So we had Jordan Phillips. Yes, Jordan Phillips is a penetrating defensive tackle. He's not a guy who's going to sit there and eat blocks. He's not a space eater. He's not a two-gapper type of defensive tackle. Also, based on situational advantages and how things happen, I like Jordan Phillips, but I don't think he was what the raw numbers say he was in terms of sacks and things like that. And as Ronald mentioned, yeah, Phillips wasn't the best against the run. Shaq Lawson was tremendous against the run, but he had a pass rush limit in terms of upside there. But yeah, Dylan says, so we're trading up for Jordan Davis. Awesome. Sounds great. Could happen. All right. So let's get to it now. Buffalo Bills versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Sorry. I keep getting all these comments that are distracting me. Oh man. He said, Brian Day said, do we need a Teddy Washington and a Sam Adams for our D? Ooh. This is also part of it too. The structure of the Bills defense, the structure of what Sean McDermott wants to play and what Leslie Frazier wants to play, in addition to how Brandon Beane has built this team and how they do that in conjunction. The Bills are a one gapping defensive line, meaning you've got this one gap on the snap, you're aggressive, you penetrate, you attack. That allows you to make more plays in the backfield, and it's also better for more pass rushing, for a better pass rushing type of style, right? Which again, today's NFL, everybody wants to pass. You got to have guys that can knife in the backfield, get in quickly, compress the pocket, get quarterbacks off their spot, cause chaos, get sacks, right? That's what the Bills are built in that mold. They're built in that one gapping, penetrating, slashing type of style for their defensive line. The opposite is guys like Ted Washington and Sam Adams, where you're two gapping, where you are responsible for two gaps. You're not just responsible for one. Those are your guys who kind of just, they don't penetrate and they hit, and then kind of they got their head like this and they're trying to read, do I got to go here and shed and go this way? Do I got to grab this guy and go shed that way? Also, another comment saying we need Pat Williams. Yeah, type of guys like that. The Bills don't roll with dudes like that. Star Lotulelei is the biggest defensive lineman that the Bills want, and he's not even that big. That's the type of big defensive tackle the Bills want, right? Now, maybe that changes this offseason, but as of now, if Ted Washington was available, I don't think the Bills would go for him because he doesn't fit the structure and the scheme. It's the same reason, as I take another drink. The same reason the Bills went for someone like Gregory Rousseau instead of Tryon or Owe in the draft this year. Now, maybe they thought he had more upside. Maybe they liked him better as a person. There could be a multitude of things behind closed doors that we don't know. But from a structure and a scheme standpoint, Gregory Rousseau fit what the Bills wanted on defense. Length, ability to compress the pocket, ability to have positional versatility up front. They didn't want somebody who was bendy and twitchy and a speed rusher who could get upfield. They wanted someone like Greg Rousseau. So we have to consider that with everything. That's also something huge to consider come draft time, right? You've got guys who you may want, who you think, oh, I would love this guy to be a Bill. If he doesn't play the scheme, they're not taking him. Beautiful example. If you're playing a cover 2 defense or like a Tampa 2 defense, right? And you've got this corner who's awesome and he's available to be drafted or signed, but he's a man coverage corner. He's not getting signed by your team. You always got to think of those scheme fits. So again, this is how this defense has been built. Same thing for the offense. How the guys we have are, well, one, based on availability and a lot of other variables, but they're based on the scheme fit of what McDermott and Bean think you need to do and how you need to build a team in order to win. So always keep that in mind. As we go through now, Buffalo Bills, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's going to be a tough one. I'm going to pull out some metrics. Did you see my notes there for the Buccaneers here? The Bucs are a good squad. They are good. No matter kind of what metric or anything you look at, they're a very sound squad. I want to pull up some of their numbers right now. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm using my notes. I got a ton of notes as always, and it's kind of hard to hide that you're looking at notes. Not that you should have to anyway, but it's hard to do that when you're going solo. So total DVOA, first in the league. Weighted DVOA, which gives more relevance to how you played recently, they're second. And they have a variance of 5. So variance, this is very important. It basically ranks how consistent you are in terms of your DVOA performance. So if you're 1, that means you've been very consistent. If you're last or 32nd, that means you have not been consistent. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers overall, team DVOA for variance, 5. They're 5th. So they're top 5. So they've been stable. They've been steady. For comparison, the Bills, total DVOA, they're 3rd. Weighted DVOA, they're 4th, but their variance is 32nd. They are last. So peaks and valleys, ebbs and flows, which makes sense. 1 week, granted, opponent has to do with it, quality of opponent. 1 week, they're blowing out the Texans or Washington or whatever have you, and the next week, they're getting smoked by the Colts. Ebbs and flows, ebbs and flows. The Tampa Bay offense, number 1 in DVOA, number 1 in weighted DVOA, 7th in variance. The Tampa Bay defense, 8th in DVOA, 10th in weighted DVOA, 5th in variance. Again, they've had a lot of injuries. They're well coached. They execute well. The fact that they are still a top 10 defense when it comes to DVOA, despite what they've gone through this year, especially in the secondary, really speaks to what they've been able to do. Buccaneers offense, red zone, something that we really want to drill home, right? We talked about it earlier. Their red zone DVOA, the Buccaneers offense, they're 3rd. Overall, 3rd in the pass and 6th in the rush. Their defense DVOA, 24th. Passing DVOA in the red zone, 24th as well. And their red zone rush DVOA is 10th. So just want to throw those out there for a little bit to kind of put in perspective. In case you didn't know, I love DVOA. I love what it measures. I love its ability to correct for opponent and situation. And again, for those who don't know, it puts things in perspective. For example, like a 5-yard gain on 3rd and 4 is much better than a 5-yard gain on 3rd and 16. One results in a first down that continues to drive. The other one puts you in 4th and 11 and doesn't matter. DVOA counts for things like that holistically from an individual and team level. So it gives you a better understanding and estimation of what teams are good, what units are good. Now, from a DVOA perspective, the Bills are still rolling hot. It's still a heavyweight fight from that regard, but these two teams come into this game in very different, ways and scenarios. And despite the fact that the Bucs are banged up, they're still a good squad, but their tendencies are really what I wanted to drill home as well, in addition to their DVOA. And also, I've got a lot more stats, especially DVOA based and raw metric based and advanced analytics and metrics. I will always tweet those out as we go closer to game time. So on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, all that stuff. So I guess that's a way of giving a cheap plug to say, follow me on the old Twitter. Defensive personnel and tendencies for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are in a 2-4-5, meaning 2 down linemen, 4 linebackers, 5 defensive backs, 39% of the time, which is the 6th most in terms of usage rate for that formation in the league. So they like to go with lighter guys. And also, I guess it depends on how you define defensive linemen. Like if you define Shaq Barrett as a linebacker, then technically like there's always 3 on the field type of stuff like that. But they go with lighter personnel. They give you a 7-man box on 33% of their snaps. That's a usage rank of 3rd in the NFL. So they have the 3rd from a usage percentage, the 3rd most 7-man box snaps. They're 29th in terms of usage percentage for a stacked box. So you are not going to see the Bucs load the box. You are going to see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with 7 defenders or less in the box, giving the Bills an opportunity to run the ball. We'll see if that can work, since it hasn't so far this year. They give a single high safety look pre-snap, so a 1 high shell on 54% of snaps. That is the 6th most in the NFL. And here's where we come down to it, right? What we talked about earlier, the difference in how Josh Allen and the Bills are being played this year, right? More zone coverage is one thing we mentioned, especially in the red zone, but also throughout the entire field. I mentioned it earlier in terms of the red zone zone coverage snaps that Josh Allen has seen. So again, the 2nd most zone coverage snaps faced in the red zone, but he's also seen the 7th most 2 high coverage snaps, so with 2 high safeties, and he's seen the 5th most cover 2 snaps, right? So he's getting a lot of zone coverage looks his way. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers run zone coverage on 65% of snaps. That's the 5th most in the NFL. And from a rush perspective, they have the highest blitz rate at 34%. They have the 2nd lowest 4-man rush percentage at 49%. And they have the 6th highest 3-man rush percent at 17%. So to tie all these things together, what you're going to see from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense against the Buffalo Bills, you are going to see zone coverage. You are going to see blitzes. They get creative with their blitzes in terms of who they bring and how they bring them and when they bring them. You are going to see light boxes inviting the Bills to run. If the Bills can run the ball, that would be tremendous in this game, much like it would be all year if the Bills could run the ball more effectively. And I don't say run the ball in terms of running it more. I just mean being more efficient and being able to run it better when you do run it. Awesome comment here from Charles that leads me to my next point there. So Diggs, Beasley, and Sanders should be able to eat up zone. The Bucs secondary is banged up. They are wounded. They've got guys playing. They've got nickel corners that are having to play outside because of injuries. They've had different players out, corners, safeties, nickel guys. Their secondary has literally been a walking wounded mash unit type of thing. I would love to see the Bills, one, be able to run the ball when they need to, but this is a good opportunity for the Bills to be able to potentially get back to the style of football that they played last year. You got a banged up secondary. You have a secondary that plays a lot of zone. As Charles mentioned here, let's get Diggs and Beasley and Sanders back into working that zone. The short to intermediate, potentially deep. I don't think you're going to see a lot of deep shots in this game against Tampa Bay, just in terms of what the Buccaneers do. So for single high coverages, they're pretty balanced between single high and 2 high coverages. So again, meaning how many safeties you have there in the back. Single high coverages on 46% of their snaps, 2 high coverages on 39%. So more single high than 2 high, but still close enough. They're balanced, especially for like NFL standards in that regard. So you are going to see light personnel. You're going to see a lot of linebackers. You're going to see fast flowing players. You are going to see a decent amount of defensive backs, even though they're banged up. You are going to see a 7-man box or less, and you are going to see zone coverage on that back end. That is what you are going to get. Now, The Buccaneers may change that up based on what they think the Bills' weaknesses are. But like we spoke about last week on Twitter, because I didn't have an episode that week, had some family stuff going on. Also, thank you very much to all the people who noticed that on Twitter when I posted it and wished me well and said kind things to me. So I appreciate you guys for that. The numbers for the coverage tendencies and that personnel tendencies for the Bills and Patriots Monday night game haven't been released yet. But being there live, it was really easy for me to be able to see what was going on from a coverage perspective, things that you can't really see from a broadcast angle. The Patriots came into that game leaders towards the top of the league in man coverage and towards the top of the league in single high coverage post snap. They did that against the Bills. They stayed true to who they were. The weather played a role, can't deny that, but the Pats stayed true to form. Now, if you looked at the numbers, the Patriots should have, quote unquote, gone to 2 high looks and played zone behind it and done all that kind of stuff. The Patriots, they danced with the girl that brought them. They stayed true to form, single high looks. They crowded the line of scrimmage. They mugged gaps. They mugged receivers. They crowded all that. They gave those single high looks. If that happens again, I would love to see the Bills run play action and take advantage of the middle of the field and throw behind those second level defenders using crossers and digs and overs and all that kind of stuff, like they did to the Jets, like you need to against defenses that run single high coverages and bring that second safety down as an extra box defender. But again, I digress. I use that to say the Patriots stayed true to form this past Monday against the Bills and were effective with it. The Bucs, their form is already something that has given the Bills offense problems throughout the season. I think they stay true to that as well. It's going to have to be a passing game. I think the Bills are going to have to score in order to keep up with the Buccaneers offense, and they're going to have to take advantage of the run when they can. But this is going to have to be a passing game. We need to get the ball back into Josh Allen's hands. He's going to have to duel with Brady. We're going to have to see what we get. Let's now flip to the offense. Lone Wolf with an awesome question. He says, how much of an issue will our D have against Leonard Fournette? Let's talk about that. Sorry, took a drink of water there. Didn't let you guys know before I did that. That's more for the audio people because I upload this and put it through to the podcasting platforms, and I don't want someone to hear, like, how come there's like 2 seconds of silence? The run game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's good. We saw what they did last year in the playoffs, playoff Lenny. We saw the Buccaneers working Leonard Fournette over and over again, and what they were able to do, and they've continued that in this year. I'm trying to find. I thought I had the DVOA rush pass breakdown. I don't, but I believe they're number 1 in offensive DVOA, and I think they're like second in rush DVOA. I may be wrong. If someone wants to fact check me on that, feel free, go ahead. Well, long story short, the Bucs can run the ball and they can pass the ball. What's scary about that is that fits in very well with what Tom Brady has loved to do for years, which is play action and go over the middle to his tight ends. We saw it a million times with New England. He turns around, he extends the ball, he shows it, he brings it back, he sets up, he hits Gronk over the middle for like 15 to 20 yards. We see what you go with that, right? We've seen that so much from Tom Brady in his career with New England. We're seeing it again in Tampa. I think Leonard Fournette is going to be a big part of this game. I feel like people forgot how good of a back he was. First round pick, top 10 pick, top 5 pick, I believe. Monster at LSU, the type of prospect that dominated high school. And when he went to LSU was an immediate game changer. Goes to the NFL and the Jags kind of fall apart. He gets released, signs a 1-year deal with the Bucs. And I feel like people forgot how really talented he is. He's also been banged up a lot in his career, but he's healthier now. He gets a better workload and a better scheme that keeps him healthy and keeps him fresh. And he's been killing it. And what's tough with that, so we saw what the Patriots did against the Bills. They were running G leads, and they were running powers, and they were running gap runs, right? So the Buccaneers, they run gap runs on 45% of their run plays. That is the 4th highest usage rate in the NFL. I expect to see that again. They also they run more zone than gap. I just want to say that to clarify some things. So they run gap on 45% of their runs, and they run zone runs on 53%. So a higher zone percentage run than gap. But what's important to note, again, The 45% gap runs, that is the fourth highest usage rate. And 45 to 53 in today's NFL is very balanced. The NFL is a zone run dominant league. I don't have it in front of me anymore, but I believe last year the numbers in terms of zone runs over 9,000 and gap runs were under 3,500 or like 34 or 3,300. So a heavy zone running league. So the fact that the Buccaneers are close to being a 50-50 split is rare in today's NFL. But again, that also speaks to the quality they have up front with their offensive line and being able to be versatile and being able to do multiple things. They got a quality group up there, right? So 45% gap runs, I would expect to see more of that. I expect to see the Buccaneers, when they run the ball, they're going to run some zone. They're going to attack the perimeter. Fournette, he's a big physical back, but he's also very fast. I expect to see the Buccaneers test the perimeter, get some of those perimeter runs, but I expect them to deploy, one of those two things. I expect them to do that with gap runs like the Colts did, like the Patriots did. I expect to see them run it right at the Bills and see if the Bills can stop it. I expect a physical game from the Buccaneers up front when it comes to the run game, based on what their tendencies are in gap runs, and then with what the Bills have shown on tape this year and how they've struggled at times with it and how they've given up big runs. And see, that's what it really is with the Bills, right? Because they are a penetrating defense, they're a smaller defense, they are a get up field in a hurry and make a play in the backfield type of defense. When it works, you lose 2, you lose 3, you lose 4, and it's awesome, right? When it doesn't work, you give up 10, 15, or 60-yard plus runs, right? Fournette can bust that off in a hurry. The Bucs know that. The Bills know that. We'll see if they can counter, but it's going to be tough. Also, within this Buccaneers offense, they are in 11 personnel 73% of the time. That is the third highest usage rate in the NFL. So you had that three-headed monster with Evans and Godwin and Antonio Brown. Brown is out. You're still going to see some 11 personnel to a decent degree. If the Pats are going to run, I wouldn't be shocked to see more 2 tight end sets now that Gronk is back. Cameron Braid is a really good number 2. He can block enough, but he's also really good in the passing game. Gronk, as we know, really good blocker, really good in the passing game, can really do it all. One of the best tight ends, unfortunately, to have ever played the game. So that's going to be a very interesting piece. They also use motion in their sets on 51% of the time, which is 6th in the NFL. So you're going to see some motion. You're going to see things that allow Brady to identify what coverage you are going to be in. Disguising coverage, not just saying it because it's the name of the show, will be at a premium in this game. Brady is awesome at dissecting defenses and knowing what they are going to do before they do it. His pre-snap diagnosis is tremendous. His ability to know, okay, they're in man, okay, they're in zone, okay, it's a cover 3, okay, it's a cover 4, all of that stuff, right? He's good enough on his own, let alone when you're building in things like motion into the offense in order to help you diagnose what's going on. So disguising coverage is going to be at a big premium. And to the question earlier, do we feel the loss of Trey White in this game? I think we do. Dane Jackson is a good zone corner. He comes from a scheme in Pittsburgh that is very similar to what the Bills play, the University of Pittsburgh I'm talking about. So he's well-versed. He's got good zone eyes. He's aggressive on the ball. He's a good tackler. He's good at understanding leverage and coverage, and he's good at understanding spacing and how to play in that world. So that's fantastic. But what's rough with that is he's got the physical limitations, as does Trey White, but Trey White makes up for that with just how technically sound he is and how smart he is, right? Dane Jackson is not at that level, and that's not a knock against Dane or honestly even a knock against Levi. It's just that Trey is on another level with that. When you got receivers like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and tight ends who can catch the ball and running backs who can make plays out of the backfield, all that stuff, anything. Anytime you play a good team, it's nice to have your best guys out there. So I think you feel the loss of Trey White anytime he's not there, but I think you feel it in this game. So seeing what the Bucs want to do in terms of using motion and why disguising coverage is important is because the Bills are going to be more limited in their coverage schemes on the back end because of who Dane Jackson and Levi Wallace are as corners. Even just what the Bills do at times when teams go trips or they leave single receivers on a side by themselves. They'll often just, even though they're playing zone away from that single receiver side, they'll play man with just Tre'Davious White. They'll play that Meg coverage, as Eric Turner has said in our film room episodes, which Meg means man everywhere he goes. Trey will be locked up one-on-one, and he can do that with a variety of receivers. I don't think you see that with Levi Wallace. I don't think you see that with Dane Jackson. We're going to really get a feel of what this Bills pass coverage looks like without Tre'Davious White, because we didn't get to see it against the Patriots. We're going to see what it looks like in this game against the Buccaneers. Also, short drop back percentage, right? Buccaneers, 69% short drop back percentage, which is the third highest usage rate in the NFL. Makes sense. We all know Tom Brady. Snap, 1, 2, 3, throws the ball. He's top 5 in terms of quickest time to throw. That means the time from the time he snaps it to the time that the ball leaves his hand. So Brady's going to move the ball fast. They're going to run short dropbacks. Getting home and getting pressure on him is going to be tough. It's hard to get a pressure on a quarterback when he's getting the ball out very quick. 1. 2, when you add in the fact that he's got a good offensive line and good scheme, it makes it even harder. So it's going to be tough to get pressures on Tom Brady. Pressures are going to be at a premium. Compressing the pocket will be at a premium. Getting hands up in passing windows will be at a premium. I think you could see Greg Rousseau have an impact on this game with batted balls at the line of scrimmage, much like he did against Patrick Mahomes, and he got an interception. That'll be very key, getting in those windows. And also, to add into what the Buccaneers offense does, they have a 14% usage rate for screen passes, which is the third most in the NFL. They have run 76 screen passes this year. So again, just more things to keep you off balance. You got gap runs, you got some zone runs, you got motion, you got quick dropbacks and quick snaps, you got screen passes, all this kind of stuff to keep a defense off balance. That's what I think you're going to see. So we're going to find out a lot in this game. The Bills lost to the Patriots. We know that. If you wanted to say the Bills are still a better team than the New England Patriots, I wouldn't think that's absolutely crazy. I don't think we learned a ton about the Bills holistically and schematically against the Patriots. I think we will against the Buccaneers because the way they're going to be tested offensively and defensively, we're going to find out just how good this defense is. The defense that's been top 2 in DVOA all year, that's been a number 1 scoring defense, that's been leading the league in turnovers and all this stuff, that's better at generating pressures than people realize. We're going to find out how good they are, especially without Tre'Davious White. We're going to find out how good they are and how much Tre'Davious White being gone really means in this game against the Patriots with how they're going to be tested. They're going to get misdirection. They're going to get tested vertically in the intermediate, in the short. They're going to get tested with gap runs, zone runs. They're going to get tested with motion. They're going to get tested with screen passes. It's an offense from Tampa that's going to keep you on your toes. The Bills defense is going to be tested. And the Bills offense is going to be tested against a good Buccaneers defense. Even when they're banged up, they still got some studs. They still got some horses. It's going to be a tough one. I wanted to go back to a question. Question from Steven. Steven says, Anthony, is this the biggest test of the year for Poyer and Hyde? I don't know if it's the biggest. It's tough to quantify biggest or most or best in any of those ways and all those like words like that. But I think it's a huge test for Poyer and Hyde. They're so key to this Bills defense and what they're able to do and how they're able to come from depth and make plays around the line of scrimmage, how they're able to make plays deep, how they turn the ball over, how they are leaders in terms of their execution and performance, but also from the mental side of things. This is a huge game for the Bills, and Poyer and Hyde are going to be at the forefront. I'll put it to you like this, Steven. For the Bills to win, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde have to have very good games, which is possible because they played at all pro levels this year. Also, I'm not going to get into it too much just in case anybody asks about it, but I don't think Micah Hyde was out of line at all for how upset he got at that question from that one reporter who I'm not going to even say his name. I thought that was kind of rough question from that certain gentleman. This is funny from Dylan. Dylan says, if we start this game and I see Zach Moss run right into Vita Vea for a 3-yard loss, I'm going to become the Joker. That's funny. Another comment here from Steven. Steven says, Anthony, nice callback to the film room episode when Eric Turner and I had former kicker Jay Feely, now turned CBS analyst. He called the Jets game. We had him on the film room with us, and he talked about putting Josh under center, as did Eric and I. Putting Josh under center is nice because it gives you more versatility in terms of play calling. It allows you to run more play action. It allows you to take advantage of some of the ball hiding tricks that Josh Allen is good at. He's really good at showing the ball and then hiding it and turning and taking advantage with play action. He's good at sucking in the defenders. It's a good way to use mobility and present different looks. I like when Josh Allen's under center. I don't believe in doing one thing too much unless you're amazing at that one thing. I believe you have to have some variability. I do like if you see a weakness and you know you have a strength with it, spam the hell out of that strength and spam that weakness for the opponent and just, keep mashing A, just A. Like I'm fine with that at times, but I do think you have to have some variability and some versatility. And I do like when Josh is under center. I recognize what he can do out of shotgun and the different looks that can be presented, but I like that under center look much for the reasons that we talked about in that film room episode with Jay Feely. Oh, pardon me there. Looking for another comment. Ooh. Where are we? Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry. That cough got me a little bit. Oh, comment from Brian. Anthony, do you see a rift between Dable and McDermott? That's hard to say, honestly. Forgive me here as I have coughed and brought a couple of tears in my eyes. I don't know. It's so hard to read into what coaches say in press conferences and to the media. And then if you're looking at, if you're trying to decipher what this coach has said this one time or a couple times versus what you see in actuality and all this stuff, I feel like you're really trying to piece things together and not creating your own narrative, but maybe creating your own adventure type of thing. I will say that tensions are definitely high with this team. Regardless of who it is, the players, the coaches with each other. And I don't mean to say that like this team is falling apart, but to tie it back into the beginning of this episode, this team had expectations going into this year, and they know they're not achieving those expectations. And tensions are going to be high. So I wouldn't be surprised if some people have yelled at each other and Dable and McDermott have gotten into a couple arguments or a couple tiffs here and there. I don't know if I see a rift or I want to say there's a rift. I think they're decently on the same page from a philosophical standpoint and how they want to run the offense. Otherwise, Dable wouldn't have been hired. I think they are on the same page to enough of a degree. And I don't want to surmise or, assume too much in trying to say that there's a rift. But tensions are high. I'll kind of just say that. And I think it's impossible to not be upset with someone at any given time, given the fact that you're all trying to accomplish this thing together and you're not accomplishing it right now. It's easy for little fractures to develop. And again, tensions are high. Anything. There are a lot of trolls tonight. Man, that's a good time. Thanks for the views. Trolls, appreciate you. Thank you so much. Anything else? Oh, comment here from Charles. I think this is if anybody else wants to throw some last minute questions as we start to wrap up here, I'll try and pick out the best ones if possible, but this might be the last one I pull up. Question here from Charles. Will the Bills run more jet motion to force teams to defend laterally and run more misdirection? I don't know. I'd like it. I see the comment there from Ethan that says that requires activating McKenzie. You could do it with Breida. You could do it with Emmanuel Sanders. You could do it with Gabriel Davis. That motion, that jet motion piece has seemed to disappear a little bit, both in terms of just showing it and then actually running those jet motion sweeps and things like that. We haven't seen it a lot this year. I would love to run it with Matt Breida. I would love that. Especially if you're not going to dress McKenzie. I would love to run it with Marquez Stevenson. I would love to do that. I think it's an element that needs to be added in. I like those little wrinkle plays, those gadget plays, those niche plays. They keep defenses off balance. It just makes another thing that you have to account for if you're a defense. Even if it doesn't work, still something they have to account for. But the Bills traditionally have been good with it. They usually gain like 5 to 6 yards or can take it to the house and make big plays out of it. So I like that. I would like to see more of it. Will they run more of it? I don't know. I would like to see it. I will say that. I would like to see that for sure. And question from Devin. Do you know anything about McKenzie or Rodgers playing this week? I don't as of right now. It's interesting. I don't know what's going on with the whole situation with Isaiah McKenzie, and he's saying stuff on social media, and then it's an odd situation in terms of roster activations every week. But as of now, I personally don't know anything. I want to pull the last comment here from Dave. Dave says, the Bills need to stop trying to run, stick to what you're good at. That's fair, but you still can't come out and pass it 50 times. You got to run at some point, and you have to be effective when you do it. That doesn't mean you have to be 50-50 balance, but you have to run at some point. You have to be effective with something other than just one dimension in order to be successful long term. You might be able to do it in one game, single in a vacuum, but to be able to have consistency and to be able to predict future wins, I think you have to stay varied on offense. Again, that doesn't mean you have to run. If you're running 50 plays, it doesn't mean 25-25. You could have a 60-40 split, 70-30, but you have to have the threat of something else in order to keep defenses off balance. And Joseph says, do you have to run? Why? He said, make them stop you. I think part of the reason why defenses have been able to stop the Bills is because they haven't had that threat of the run. The reason they're playing too high coverages and zone coverage with those too high coverages is because there is no threat of the run. Because there is no reason that they have to bring an extra defender forward, or because there is no reason that they have to crowd the line of scrimmage. So you can just sit back. Now, could you still carve up the defense and just pass it 100% of the time? In theory, yes. Is it much harder to do that? Yes. Also, our offensive line isn't a very good offensive line as a whole. Especially in pass protection, honestly, run protection as well. But you've still got a rookie in Spencer Brown. I don't want him coming out and having to pass pro every single time. Feliciano and Bodker and Ford, whoever's starting at guard, they're not the best pass protectors in the world. So that also plays a factor, right? Trying to mitigate the deficiencies of your offensive line and also not allowing defenses to just tee off and rush your quarterback over and over. Oh, that's fair. From Dave came back with his comment, said, agreed, but I'm saying use a run to punch the ball in and throw a few in occasionally to throw them off guard. That's all it is for me. I just want to keep defenses off guard. I don't want any defense being able to say, okay, I think I know what's coming. No, I just want to keep them off balance and off guard as much as humanly possible. And comment here from Tommy. Tommy says you need a bigger tree if you're going to represent year round. Just another foot and a little more volume. I'm a huge fan of that. I can go bigger tree. I'll mention it to the wife. She does the decor for this thing. I appreciate you, Tommy. I like where your head's at. It's always important to notice the tree. I do like the... that's interesting. The volume aspect is a nice call. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe I'll just add more trees. Right? Maybe 2 or 3 more trees. Right? Maybe a bunch of little trees versus one bigger tree. I don't know. It's a thought. I like where your head's at. I appreciate you, Tommy. I like where your head's at. Oh, thank you, Dylan. 1, for the donation. Appreciate you. And also for being here live. And now I'm going to read your comment. If we draft or pick up a running back in free agency, parentheses, we should, what prototype would you want? A bigger power back? Oh, like Zach Charbonnet from UCLA? Or, I made that rhyme, or a speedier guy. I want speed. given how this offensive line is built. I think a speed back who can be a threat out of the backfield is what I want for this offense. I wouldn't be opposed to a power guy. I wouldn't be opposed to an AJ Dillon type of back or Charbonnet. I also think Charbonnet has a I know he's a power back. I think he's got enough speed that I'd take him right now. I'm cool with it. But give me, like, for example, if we're looking in the draft, right? I would love Kenneth Walker or, oh, I can't believe his name is escaping me, the running back from Iowa State, Breece Hall. I love Breece Hall. Oh, yeah, Charles just said it. Kenneth Walker, please. Give me Kenneth Walker. Give me Breece Hall. Give me a Bijan Robinson type. I want speed and somebody who can come out of the backfield and run routes. I want that constant threat. Again, why? To keep defenses off balance. Is it a run? Is it a pass? Is it a screen? Is it a draw? All these types of things, right? And yeah, to Ronald's point, their speed won't matter if the D-line are immediately in the backfield. Very true, but speed helps correct for things a little bit, right? Your offensive line doesn't have to hold on to their blocks as long if you got a guy who can hit the hole faster. If you got a guy who can threaten the perimeter, you can run more tosses. You can run more outside zone. You can do things to threaten the outside in addition to threatening the middle. It keeps defenses off balance. Speed isn't everything, right? It is not everything, but it adds another element that defenses have to account for, and it allows your offense to be further multiple and further varied. But really great question. I love that. That was awesome. What else do we got? I think we're going to wind it down there. I like the comment here from Devin saying, I think the Bills should get Marlon Mack from Indy if they can't find a running back in the draft. He was amazing before his injury, and he would be cheap because of that. I would love to work him into a rotation because he has shown fragility in his body physically. So I love his long speed and his dynamic. He's more of a straight line runner than I would like. I'd like a little more shiftiness, but I wouldn't say no. Ooh, I like what Charles says there. With a vet like Madison or AJ Dillon. Alexander Madison is super underrated. Granted, Minnesota's scheme is good, but I like Madison a lot. And I think that's going to do it on this episode. We've got the Cover One show, the Cover One Buffalo show with Greg and Aaron coming up at 9. I want to give everybody plenty of time to digress and breathe a little bit for this next half hour before this show comes up. Before their show comes up. So tune into that at 9. Support the channel. I want to thank everybody, as always, for joining me live here on this episode. The chat was awesome tonight. You guys had great, thoughtful, smart, good conversation, provoking questions and rapport and everything. So I appreciate you guys stopping in, as always. If you were not here live and you watch this later or listening to this later, whatever have you, thank you very much for your listen. Thank you very much for your view. I greatly appreciate it, as does the Cover One team. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage and to Cover One as a whole. Drop by and give a rating on Apple Podcasts. That is awesome. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, all that stuff. It is tremendously helpful to myself and the entire team. While you're here, everybody here, we got 87 people live here watching this. On your way out, whether you're leaving now or as I finish wrapping up the outro here with the toodles, you guys, drop a like on this video. Again, I know it sounds corny and I hate saying it. It goes a huge way in terms of helping myself and the team to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. So please drop a like on your way out. Go and get yourself some One Pie Pizza if you live in the Buffalo area. The online menu is in this episode description. It's genuinely delicious pizza. I get it once a week. I probably would get it more if I could. I kind of want to more. I'll talk to the wife about it. It's delicious. So is the homemade blue cheese, and they're genuinely great people. We wouldn't have partnered with them, and I wouldn't have partnered with them if they didn't have a quality product and if they weren't quality people. Get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Huge partners of the show. If you're still trying to get into some fantasy action and some best ball and parlays and all that kind of stuff and player props and anything like that, we got the Underdog Fantasy promo code for you down there in the episode description. Use that promo code Cover1. Get yourself a free $10 when you download the app and deposit $10 yourself. Underdog is fantastic. A lot of stuff going on. I appreciate everybody who's throwing me all types of kind words and positive stuff in the chat right now with good job and great show and thank you and all that stuff. But no, Devin, I don't think One Pie delivers to Indiana. I'm sorry. I'll see if they can open up a franchise there. But the thank you goes to you guys. I and the Cover One team are nothing without your support in whatever form or fashion you give it. So thank you very much for tuning in, watching, listening, anything, everything like that. Get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Rate, review, subscribe, like. Thank you very much to everybody who gave me kind words last week when I had to take a step away for some stuff I had to deal with in real life. So thank you very much for that. Be kind to one another. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. And go Bills, as always. And I will see you next week. Thank you very much.